It's 3 a.m. and you're still staring at your screen, your eyes burning, your body screaming for sleep, yet your finger hovers over that next episode button like it's controlled by some invisible force. You tell yourself just one more episode, the same lie you've been telling yourself for the past 6 hours. And suddenly, you realize you've watched an entire season of a show you don't even particularly like. Sound familiar? What if I told you this isn't a failure of your willpower, but the result of one of the most sophisticated psychological manipulation systems ever created, designed by teams of neuroscientists, behavioral economists, and data analysts whose sole purpose is to hijack your brain's reward system and keep you glued to that screen until the sun comes up? Welcome to the dark side of streaming entertainment, where your attention isn't just the product being sold, it's the addiction being carefully cultivated. The story begins in the early 2000s, when Netflix was still mailing DVDs in red envelopes. But even then, Reed Hastings and his team understood something profound about human psychology that would later become the foundation of their streaming empire. They realize that the most powerful drug isn't cocaine or heroin, it's uncertainty, combined with intermittent rewards, the exact same mechanism that makes gambling so addictive. When Netflix transitioned to streaming, they didn't just change how we watch TV. They weaponized decades of research from casinos, video game companies, and behavioral psychology labs to create what industry insiders now call a attention capture system that makes slot machines look like child's toys. The first weapon in Netflix's psychological arsenal is something called the cliffhanger algorithm, but it's far more sophisticated than just ending episodes on dramatic moments. Every single aspect of a Netflix show, from the pacing of dialogue to the placement of dramatic beats, is analyzed by artificial intelligence systems that can predict with terrifying accuracy exactly which moments will trigger your brain's dopamine release. These algorithms don't just track what you watch, they monitor how long you pause before clicking next, how often you rewind scenes, even the micro movements of your cursor as you hover over different options. They're literally reading your subconscious reactions and using that data to fine-tune their content, like a dealer adjusting the odds on a rigged game. But the real genius lies in what Netflix calls neural pathway optimization, a process so invasive it would make surveillance states jealous. Every time you watch something on Netflix, you're not just consuming entertainment. You're feeding data into machine learning systems that are mapping the neural pathways in your brain. They know that certain color palettes trigger specific emotional responses, that particular sound frequencies can induce anxiety or comfort, and that specific narrative structures can override your logical decision-making processes. This is why Netflix originals often feel strangely similar despite being different genres. They're all built on the same psychological framework designed to maximize what the company internally refers to as session duration and retention probability. The autoplay feature isn't a convenience, it's a carefully calculated assault on your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and impulse control. Neuroscientists have discovered that there's a critical window of about 15 to 30 seconds after finishing an episode where your rational mind might reassert control and convince you to stop watching. Netflix's autoplay countdown is specifically timed to bypass this window, creating what researchers call decision fatigue override. By the time your brain has processed that the previous episode has ended, the next one has already begun, and you're caught in what addiction specialists recognize as a behavioral loop trap. The thumbnails you see aren't random either. They're the result of what Netflix calls artwork personalization, but what's really happening is far more sinister. The platform runs thousands of A/B tests every day, showing different users different images for the same content to determine which visual triggers are most likely to prompt a click from your specific psychological profile. That romantic comedy might show you a thumbnail emphasizing the romance if their algorithms have determined you're feeling lonely, or highlight the comedy elements if their data suggests you're seeking escapism from stress. They're not just recommending content, they're psychologically profiling you in real time and tailoring their manipulation tactics to your current emotional vulnerabilities. Perhaps most disturbing is Netflix's use of what psychologists call social proof manipulation. The trending now and popular on Netflix categories aren't based solely on actual viewing numbers. They're algorithmic constructions designed to create artificial scarcity and social pressure. The platform can make any show appear popular by featuring it prominently to users who are statistically likely to watch it, then use those manufactured viewing numbers to convince other users that they're missing out on something everyone else is enjoying. It's the digital equivalent of having fake customers lined up outside a store to make it appear more desirable than it actually is. The binge-watching model itself is based on research from addiction medicine that shows how tolerance and dependency develop in the human brain. Just like drug dealers give away free samples to create dependency, Netflix front-loads their series with highly engaging content, then gradually extends episode lengths and reduces the intensity of dramatic payoffs, forcing viewers to consume more content to achieve the same level of satisfaction. This is why many people report that Netflix shows start strong but become harder to follow or less satisfying as they progress. It's not poor writing, it's intentional behavioral conditioning designed to increase consumption while creating psychological dependency. The recommendation algorithm is perhaps the most insidious aspect of this system because it masquerades as personalized service while actually functioning as a sophisticated behavioral modification tool. The algorithm doesn't just predict what you might like, it actively shapes your preferences by exposing you to content that gradually shifts your viewing habits toward more binge-friendly formats. If you start out preferring documentaries, the system will slowly introduce documentary series, then docudramas, then serialized dramas, systematically conditioning you to prefer content formats that promote longer viewing sessions and stronger platform dependency. Netflix's data collection goes far beyond your viewing habits. They're monitoring your device usage patterns, cross-referencing your viewing times with social media activity, weather data, economic indicators, even political events to build psychological profiles so detailed they can predict your viewing behavior weeks in advance. They know that people watch more content during economic uncertainty, that certain personality types gravitate towards specific genres when experiencing relationship problems, and that particular demographic groups are more susceptible to binge watching during certain times of the year. This isn't entertainment recommendation, it's behavioral prediction and manipulation on an industrial scale. The most chilling aspect of this system is how it exploits our fundamental human need for narrative and meaning. Netflix has discovered that people don't just watch shows for entertainment. They use stories to process emotions, work through personal problems, and make sense of their lives. The platform's algorithms identify these psychological vulnerabilities and feed them with content specifically designed to keep you emotionally dependent on their stories. If you're going through a breakup, they'll recommend shows that explore relationship themes but never quite resolve them, keeping you coming back for the emotional closure that never quite arrives. The autoplay trailers that start when you hover over content aren't previews. They're psychological triggers designed to create what marketers call investment escalation. Once you've watched even a few seconds of preview content, your brain begins to develop a sense of investment in that story. making you statistically more likely to commit to watching the full show. It's the same principle used by timeshare salespeople who get you to sit through a presentation. Once you've invested time, walking away feels like a loss, even if the product isn't something you actually want. What makes this entire system particularly effective is how it exploits our social isolation and the decline of traditional community structures. Netflix has positioned itself not just as an entertainment platform, but as a social connector, using shared viewing experiences and cultural moments to create artificial communities around their content. The platform encourages this through features like shared accounts and viewing parties, but what they're really doing is replacing genuine human connection with parasocial relationships, with fictional characters and manufactured cultural experiences that only exist within their ecosystem. The psychological impact of this system extends far beyond just wasted time. Researchers are beginning to document what they're calling streaming depression, a condition characterized by the emotional emptiness and lack of accomplishment that follows extended binge-watching sessions. Because Netflix content is designed to provide intermittent emotional rewards without genuine resolution or personal growth, heavy users often experience a kind of psychological malnutrition, consuming vast quantities of narrative content that provides temporary emotional stimulation, but leaves them feeling more empty and disconnected than when they started. The next time you find yourself unable to stop watching Netflix, remember that you're not experiencing a personal failure of willpower. You're being subjected to one of the most sophisticated behavioral manipulation systems ever created. Your attention, your time, your emotional energy, and ultimately your life are the products being harvested by algorithms that understand your psychological vulnerabilities better than you understand them yourself. The streaming wars aren't being fought over content quality or technical innovation. They're being fought in the battlefield of your mind. And the casualties are measured not in dollars lost, but in human potential wasted and authentic connections sacrificed for the artificial intimacy of parasocial relationships with fictional characters. Understanding this manipulation is the first step toward reclaiming your agency. Every time you feel that compulsive pull to watch just one more episode, recognize it for what it is, not a genuine desire for entertainment, but a manufactured craving created by systems designed to exploit your brain's reward pathways for corporate profit. Your attention is your most valuable resource, and it's time to stop giving it away to companies that see you not as a human being seeking meaning and connection, but as a data point in an algorithm designed to maximize engagement metrics at the expense of your well-being. If this video has opened your eyes to the psychological manipulation happening in your own living room, hit that like button and subscribe for more revelations about the hidden forces shaping our modern world. Because once you see the matrix of behavioral control that surrounds us, you can never unsee it. And that awareness is your first step toward freedom.